Where am I going to go?
Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Happy 4th of July.
Good day to you.
Good day. What's happening, sister?
Just, I spend a lot of time processing stuff anymore. I think that's just kind of like my conversation. If I notice my energy is going outside of myself to something or someone, automatically bringing it back into myself and then noticing what shows up in my, whatever shows up, right? Because no matter how I look at it, it's all practicing intuition. It really is. It's flexing the muscles. So if I am focused on a situation or a person or something that feels displeasing to me, then it's to be, okay, wait a minute, I'm looking outside of myself. So now I'm going within inside of myself, whether that's feeling some traumas or anger or some old energies, or whether it's feeling good or blissful, feeling the body, the way, whatever's showing up in the body, listening, focusing on the ears. What am I hearing right now? Because it automatically takes me into a neutral space. And I'm no longer focused on what doesn't seem to be working at the moment in my perspective of working. So that's kind of a lot what I'm practicing, a lot of what I'm practicing almost on a daily, it's moment to moment really. And it's recognized as soon as I get triggered or whatever, it's just going in and seeing how is that showing up. Like I said, it could be, I might get something in my third eye, or I might hear something in my ears, or I might hear whatever. It's messages. We get messages all the time. And then I could be playing a game and I might see 6116 and I look it up and get the information. And then I'm sitting there, just sitting there, and all of a sudden the word pops into my head, Hexar. I don't even know what the hell that is. I don't know what that means. And I go look it up and it talks about 6. And I thought, well, isn't that ironic, right? So more stuff being brought to my vocabulary that I am not familiar with, which is just another way of letting me know we're receiving information from outside of us all the time. Like, are we listening? Do we discount those things because we don't talk about them? So here we are talking about them. We're going to start. It's being in the practice of what good things did you do today? How do you feel today? Not the things, what bad did you do today, or what do you feel was wrong today? It's what was good. So that's where I'm at. It was a loaded question. You didn't know it was going to be a loaded answer.
Like, is that all you got?
It's fun. How are you?
Yeah, so that, I call it being curious about yourself, or self-inquiry is a moment to moment. It just is, because in this moment, it's you and I talking, and you might say something that I go, oh, yeah, I need, might be beneficial if I look at that, or we might have a great conversation and it's just all joyful and laughing. And in the next moment, I might be with my husband and he does something and I got to do some self-inquiry. And the next moment I might be on the phone with my mom and have to do some self-inquiry. So, it is just moment by moment, and having the awareness of ease and grace through it all, because we're just operating from our programming from childhood, and recreating a story for ourselves, maybe igniting something new and different because we're just tired of the old. So, yep.
It is. What comes to mind right off the bat is an Etch-a-Sketch, like we've talked about in the past, but it's almost like every lifetime you come into is an Etch-a-Sketch. You get to shake it off and you don't remember any of the stuff, and you start rebuilding, and it's with new information, which is kind of phenomenal in a lot of ways, because we get to forget everything and then start remembering things and piecing together things that make sense to us. It doesn't have to make sense to somebody else.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, and I sent you recently I sent you a video. I said it's kind of vulgar, but because it is, and I even got to another spot that was like, well, I can't believe I just said that. Because he's like, I don't know how much we can say. She's like, you can lay whatever you want out on the line.
I think I just passed that part this morning. I was like, okay, here we go.
I just got to that part this morning. I was like, oh, I didn't know it was like that. But there's a lot of information that's valuable in this. And as I'm listening to it, I hear for myself is, a lot of times we come together with someone from our trauma related, or our related traumas. I mean, really, that's a lot of, most relationships are made that way. Does it mean that once that one person evolves, that they can't evolve together? No, It means that once the person evolves, and we kind of like help the other person kind of come forward, and then that person will evolve so far and then kind of bring you forward. So it's a constant give and take, as long as there's not an abusive relationship going on, name calling, beating up someone, just abusive relationships. That's a little bit different. And this relationship that they were talking about was even going into having affairs and cheating, but really not breaking up and going the opposite direction. They actually explored these feelings. They explored it and didn't make it so taboo. And maybe that's why it's so out there right now, because it's been considered so taboo, right? Instead of just having the conversations, because if you want to do that, then again, you're not within inside of yourself. You're not following your true feelings about how things feel, because otherwise a lot of these people wouldn't do these things. And even the man's talking about that because he had an affair. He's talking about how he couldn't keep it to himself because it was eating a hole in him. So he had to just tell her the truth, and he finally just spilled the truth to her, which gave her permission in so many ways to go explore things. And I'm not saying that this relationship would work for everybody. It wouldn't work for me because I'm a monogamous person. It's too much to maintain more than one relationship. It really is. We have relationships with friends and stuff all the time, but it's to focus on that relationship. If you're really giving that relationship really all that it can have, or that, the greatest foundations, you really got to be active in it. It's not something that just, okay, well, we made a commitment, we're going to stay together, let's do this. And that's it. That's not how it works. So, but that's the same for ourselves. It's also, that relationship was between two people, but this relationship we have with ourselves. And it's like, how are we stepping on ourselves? How are we treating ourselves? How are we neglecting ourselves? How are we not stepping in our own power? And then they're talked about fawning. So we were just looking up fawning on there, and it's another trauma response, but it's like trying to always fix things or over soothe or over love somebody just so maybe they'll learn how to love you better. Just so many different things, so different processes. But I like that it's like, no, when we come together from traumas, it's an opportunity for us to grow because it's a trigger, right? We came here to procreate. We didn't come here to be by ourselves, contrary to popular belief of some people. But that's not what it's all about. It really is about us working together. And when we work in those relationships, we find out more about ourselves. We find out what makes us tick. And then we recognize, where are we locking ourselves down? How are we holding ourselves back? And we could use that even going into an intimate relationship, because we got to be careful what we say on Facebook. If we say anything too much, it might be like, these people cannot see it today. But it's an intimate relationship, but it's an intimate relationship with yourself too. So I find it interesting, just the information that's been actually brought to my attention, because this is a video that I would not typically have listened to, but I saw it and I was like, what the heck? I was in the middle of doing something, and then they started saying things and I started understanding some things, which was huge, because it's been that way for a lot of relationships. We walk into a space, it feels uncomfortable, we try to make it feel better so we can stay in that space. That's our habit. Now it's when you can become comfortable in the space, regardless of what anybody is implying or putting out there from their energy. You start recognizing, this is not my stuff. This is not my stuff. If I'm responding to this, it's not my stuff. Is this true? So it goes back to the same questions. We talk about a lot of this stuff a lot, but it's because we go through things that kind of start coming up, and it starts kicking you into gear again. And like, okay, so there's some triggers here, but I just go right into it now. I'm just going right into it. Why? You made a comment a little while ago, because it gets old. We don't want to be in that space anymore. It's boring. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So what do you do about it? You change it.
Right. You can't change it until you acknowledge that there's something that needs to change. So this couple that we're talking about, they recognized that they had their trauma and that they were operating from that, and they decided to work through it and openly discuss it with each other as they're moving through it. So, is their internal work, but also being on that path together to work through it, even through the infidelity and the struggles and the difficulties that they did have in the relationship. But what they did, actually their relationship turned out to be amazing, and that's where they're at now. And that's where they're offering classes, and like their teachers some, so I'm not quite sure all that, but they are teachers of some sort. And, but they have a fantastic relationship the way they're talking. So it is recognizing that we have our own internal traumas from our past. And until we can acknowledge or see the patterns, you're going to keep operating from that space. You're going to keep having the same relationships, just different names, different faces, and it's going to just perpetuate. And we always think that it's the other person that they need, if they could just see how good I am. Well, no, it's, you got to see how good you are in yourself to recognize that this probably isn't the relationship for you. You're just acting out of your programming. What you have learned is some people, because of their history, because of their upbringing, they might see an abusive relationship as a healthy relationship. And two people are going to be attracted. The person who feels the abuse is okay, and the person who feels that being abused is okay, and they're going to come together. So until you know something different, you're not going to do anything different. You're going to stay in that type of a relationship. Whereas when you recognize, you know what, I'm tired of having black eyes. I'm tired of lying about them. I'm tired of saying, I fell and I got bruised. I'm tired of I'm tired of covering these things up. It doesn't feel good. And we say this every single week, using your body to recognize what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And when you're in that space of covering things up and telling these lies that it doesn't feel good, it's not your truth. And that's the biggest indicator you could have that something is time for something to change. And that comes inward, that comes inside of you, that knowing that you're a spirit and body and you are innately worthy and deserving of goodness in life. That's where the internal work begins, is seeing your own worth and honoring that, and knowing that there's so much goodness out there that you're worthy of receiving. And it's getting yourself into that space of wanting to make those changes so you can receive healthier stuff and more goodness.
It just feels like the journey kind of pulls you along it, really. If you're kind of following your intuition, you just are along for the ride for a lot of things, and you get to bear witness for a lot of the changes that you get to enact, which is pretty phenomenal, especially when you've already seen the opposite side of how it's not working, and now you get to start seeing things working. And it's interesting. It is interesting. We had a little get together Saturday that we're getting like-minded people together and having conversations, and we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. I could just recommend it for anybody that's listening. Get some people together. You always have at least one. They know at least one other person too, that they're matching conversations with you, and it's a nice little get together, and you could set it up for a small amount of time frame just so you all have the opportunity, but it's not overdone. So if we set it up for a couple hours, which seems to be pretty good. And then, you just kind of go on, and like you were saying, you get different perspectives on things, and it's awesome. And it's not because it's always the right perspective, because there is no right or wrong perspective, but it's another perspective. And you can decide intuitively if that resonates with you or if it doesn't. And you can take it or leave it. And that's how it is with a lot of things. And when you're in those groups, you just recognize there's such a flow going on, and you get to watch everybody grow around you, how they could have been quiet at first, and now how they're not so quiet, and how much they've transformed and changed, and even intuitively how they pick up on things that especially when you have new people, they don't know each other, and they start picking up on things naturally that you're aware of. So then you hear these conversations. So it's just such a beautiful place. Because it used to be for me at one time, if I saw something like that, I'd be like, well, I wish I could do that. Well, I can't do that. Like it always felt like everything was always out of my reach. And now it's just a conversation. We are everything that we're looking for. Whatever you're seeking, you already are. But if you're seeking it and constantly looking for it, you feel like it's something that's out of reach and it's not in your wheelhouse right now. It's not something that you have access to right now, but we do. The only one that's keeping you separate from it is you. And I love exploring these relationships. I've never listened to a relationship thing before, but I love exploring it, even from past relationships, even to into new relationships, how the dynamics are, how have I been showing up? How can I show up better? So there's a lot of wonderful things out there, but how do you know where to go? Well, you just get tired of where you're at right now, and then you start asking more questions and you want more answers, and they start showing up, and maybe you might get guided to a video, and that video might just have a word. It might even be something that's so minuscule, but it makes such a difference for yourself. You just kind of go along for the journey to see what it turns out to be. Before, I would have expectations of a video to be a certain way, and then it's like, this isn't giving me what I want, and I'm like off of it. It's just realizing exactly where I'm at, and the flow feels better when I'm asking the universe guide me to something that's going to uplift me from where I'm at right now. Because sometimes I don't gauge myself very well, but the universe gauges me pretty well. So then the next thing I listen to lifts me up just enough to get to the next place. And then my mind gets to more of a playful place, because it can't always be in a playful place if you're kind of down, if I'm looking to be uplifted, obviously I'm not feeling 100% on track that day. I'm not feeling connected. And that's probably my biggest thing, is not feeling the connection.
Yeah.
So I strive for it all the time.
And what I do when I'm in a group like that, like what we had, or even in my classes, I kind of take an inventory. It's like, how are these people a reflection of me?
Nice.
And you can relate better to them, because you're like, because there was one there was a little introverted, and I'm like, okay, she's quiet, she's reserved, she's just holding back, and until she gets comfortable with the conversation, with being around these people that she doesn't know. And I was like, well, I can relate to that. And so taking the effort to include her in the conversation, and make eye contact with her, and make her feel comfortable and seen and heard, and so each person in a group is a reflection of you. They just are. We're a reflection of each other. And when we can tap into that space of, oh yeah, I identify with how this person is, then you can bring in that compassion even more. Well, when you're bringing in the compassion for them, that means you have the compassion for yourself, because you recognize that person is me. And if I have the ability to become compassionate for them, that means I already have the ability to be compassionate to myself.
It's helping the person to grow and to open up, because I understand who we're referring to, and I also know very valuable information flows from this person. So that's like I said, it's always fascinating to watch the group, and it is to know that, to witness someone else's opening, because we're witnessing our own opening. Because that's an allowing thing. We're not trying to control it. Hurry up! You need to go pick out. You've got just 2 minutes to go pick out a candy bar that you want to pick out, or you got 2 minutes to go pick out a toy, and that's it. That's it. That's all the time you got. We're not wasting time on this, but it's to allow an openness, allow an openness, allow them to be able to be themselves and open up gradually the way they need to grow up or open up, because we all evolve differently, and it's not something that's going to happen too fast. You think it's going to happen too fast? It's only going to give you what you can handle. I think even the people that go through a Kundalini awakening, a huge awakening, I feel like can be very traumatizing to them, and from what I understand. But I also believe that they were capable of handling it, or it wouldn't have been in that space anyways. It wouldn't have just opened up if it wasn't meant to open up. So it's just along that journey. It's just enjoying it, watching the unfoldment of everything, appreciating everyone. Because then again, who are you appreciating? You're appreciating yourself, because you're appreciating all these aspects of you.
Yeah. And in those moments like that, like the Kundalini awakening, or, a near-death experience, or facing some intense drama, what I see that now as is the universe is like, okay, you've had your moment to take a breath. Now it's time to level up. we're going to the next level now, right? That's how games are created. You complete a level, now you're stronger, you have more tools, and then you go to the next level, and those that you're facing are typically either matching you or stronger than you, and your goal is to be out with them, outmaneuver them, so that you can get to the next level. So that's kind of the way I see the universe now in life is, okay, we gave you enough time to take a breath and rest. Now it's time to level up. So here's your next challenge. And we don't always like that, even for, like Bev and I have been, on this path for several years. We have those moments too. And the universe is like, it's time. It's time. It's like, 3 years ago when Bev said, yeah, let's do tea time. That was getting out of the box. That was a huge step for her. And I knew it because I'd been teaching for a while. I was already comfortable with it. I'd already been doing lives. I've been doing that. And I knew within me that it would be beneficial for her to take that next step. And I encouraged her, but I don't feel like I pushed you into it, because there would have been huge resistance. Mm-hmm. She said, no. Okay. And then finally she's like, yeah, let's do it. Of course, I almost fell off my chair, but I'm just it's like, well, wait, what? We're going to do this. So, it's getting in the discomfort is where there's growth. And as much as I don't want to say that, it's true. Because I'm like, just universe, just because I'm talking about this doesn't mean I want to I'm not ready to level up yet. Be easy with me, please.
What is it that Suzanne Giesman says? May all my lessons be, it's not with grace and ease, but that's what comes to my mind, like let all my lessons be with, easy, with grace and ease, or I don't know how she says it, but it's something along those lines, which is nice when you think about it, because we do have control over that. Just like when we're receiving intuitive messages and you're starting to receive information from spirit, if it's going too fast, you can ask spirit to slow it down. If they're giving you videos and things are going boom, 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 because they're not trying to overwhelm you, they're trying to help you, because by helping you helps them. Right. By helping you helps them, and it helps the loved ones that are here in the physical still, that are struggling, that they're holding on to one thing that they can't seem to evolve from, because they can't let it go until someone says something to them at one word, and it changes everything, and it removes a load from their shoulders. Yeah. And they feel lighter, and they're lighter, and they can go on, because every time. So if I see within, I'll use one of my kids as an example. If I see within my kids that they're struggling or having a struggle, not being happy with life or whatever, well, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go out, because before of us was what I would do. I'd go out and let's try to how are we going to make this work? How can I fix this? How can I make them happy so they can feel better and they can flourish? No, now I'm going to go with inside of myself. How can I make, what is she having right now that's really highlighting what's inside of me right now? Because that's me. So if I can start looking at that stuff with inside myself, and now I can start evolving. If I do that work for myself, and I don't even like to use the work, if I like to look at myself and to learn and get to know myself better, is a better way of looking at it, then I can move forward, and so can my kids. They don't have to carry that stuff anymore. The thing is, we see the problem and we want to face the problem head on and let's go fix it. And it's not something to go, let's go do. It's not anything like that. It's let's go with inside. What am I hearing right now? What can I see with my eyes closed? What am I sensing with my body? What do I feel in my body? Asking questions. It's really always going right back to self. All of it.
Well, I'd like to add to that too, is that fixing it, one is you want to fix it so you actually feel better, not them. You want them to feel better, but it's ultimately so you feel better, because you don't like to see your children or your loved ones suffering. But the other thing is that pushing through, that fix it, that go, that's masculine energy. And what you're talking about is bringing in that feminine energy to go within. Going within is connecting to me, is connecting to spirit, and bringing in the feminine energy of nurturing to just be still, be quiet, connect with yourself, with your spirit, and ask for the guidance. So you and I know, have been in our survival masculine energy mode, like up until maybe a couple years ago, maybe even more present in that masculine energy of having that survival mentality. And now we're like, I'm just going to sit with this. I'm just going to ask the questions internally. I'm going to ask spirit. I'm going to ask God. I'm going to sit with this and just notice how I feel. When you're connecting with how you feel and your emotions, that is feminine energy. And when we have more people doing that, it really, just having the conversation, like I'm just calming down. Like I'm just like, just feels so good, right? Let's just be right here and just notice how we feel for the next 30 minutes.
It's true.
Hmm.
And it's peaceful.
Yeah. And
My mind's processing because we're saying feminine, and I know for us, feminine, masculine, that's a earthbound thing. That's not a spiritual thing because that's really not what it's about. We can bring forward people and feel a masculine or a feminine to a person. So my mind's trying to process that. But then again, on the other side of that, why have to process it, right? But this is not what my mind was going through as you were talking, and you brought that up because then I started thinking about that. I guess it depends on if I'm in my humanness right now versus being in my spiritualness right now from either side, because it just goes back to labels and everything else. So then I'm seeing it as a label. So now you're fitting into one space, and it's interesting. I find it interesting that we refer to our intuitive as our feminine anyways, when on the other side it's just is. It's not a masculine or a feminine. It just is. It's just is. There is no difference. We don't label things. So it's just interesting that I'm processing this right now. So I haven't gotten anywhere substantial just yet, but that's just how it feels to me.
well, I
It
would
just-
say that, in our human experience, there's duality. So there's masculine,
Of course.
positive, negative, right, wrong, right? There's always duality. And so that's how we identify those things from our human's perspective. And when we can sift and sort through that, then there becomes more of a conscious awareness. So it would be more connected to a spiritual aspect where there is no there, because each one of those is actually a judgment. And when we're in that space of collective consciousness, there's no judgment.
Yeah.
And if that's the goal that you have during, your human experience, then so be it. I personally am like, okay, well, these things help me identify the human experience so I can get clear and sift through of an understanding of a spiritual experience.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering if there is still duality, like when we're in 5D, that energy, if there is still duality, because it seems to be that there may not be. It's just promoting questions for me, right?
Well,
With the
in
conversation that we're
in
having.
that space would be just the vibrational frequency. It's either a higher vibration or lower vibration.
I would say, yeah, everything's frequency. So, but it's just not staying. The basic thing would be like looking at the 3D world and we're paying attention to politics, and then going to the 5D, we're paying attention to being in a state of bliss, in a state of happiness, in a state of connectedness.
Yeah.
So maybe there wouldn't be duality in like the 5th or the 7th because you're connected. That's the main focus. And when you're in the 3D, you're really not connected. You're connected to everything that's outside of yourself. You're very about the news that's going on and the materialistic stuff.
Sure. And look how much we raise our vibration just from releasing the physical body. It's like we can't even fathom what that is.
It's true. And just like when they talk about how dense it is to come once a person has left their body, that's the awesome thing. Like, so here's the deal. Like, if as we age, some people lose their sight and their eyes become a problem. But to be at that space when that sight has been taken and then all of a sudden it all comes back, that's amazing. So that's kind of the same thing, because these people have those near-death experiences that we've listened to some of their stories. And some of them will say when they come back and it feels so dense and heavy.
Yeah.
When you come back into this experience. So that is interesting. It is interesting. It's because it's just, to me, it's just like the eyesight again. You don't realize what you have or where you're at, or
Right.
just how things could be taken so lightly. Even now, coming back into this body, we could be serious. And serious. Let's go to that real quick. What is
There
the,
we go. She's like,
what the F is up with this? Why do people have to be so serious for spirituality? Because I've been the same. So I mean, I
I
know
did too.
it's ridiculous. It's like this is I am very much having a very spiritual experience. What do you think about it? And when you're so serious like that, it's like, are you really having a fun on your spiritual experience?
Yeah, I
No,
had this.
not when it's like that, because it's so serious. Well, no, you need to do this. You need to do that. No, that's not how it is. That's not how it is.
Really,
So
it's about feeling good and loving.
yeah,
And
simple. The
laughing, right?
simple stuff, right? Simple.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Just
I
like
went through that phase too. Like I thought it was like I had this persona that even spirit, because I was a serious person, right? I was like,
yes,
there was anyway. So when I got to the spirituality space, I started getting that, like that was a serious thing. Like you had to do things in a certain way, and this is how it had to be. And then the more I was learning and the more I was healing, the more I was like, wait, these people are having fun and they're laughing and they're enjoying life, and they crack jokes about life, and some of them still have alcoholic beverages and dance, and it's just like this, the way I was seeing it in my mind and the way I was seeing people be, I was like, wait. And then of course it was like, now what am I doing wrong? So I had more healing to do. And now I'm just like, you know what? If I feel like having a beer, I'm going to have a beer. And I tell you, as I'm drinking the beer, I know the consequences, because I usually just get like super tired and just want to go to sleep. Or the next day I'm just like, not feeling the greatest, right? But in the moment, we're having a great time and I'm just like, I'm gonna have a mixed drink. I'm going to have that mixed drink because I want to, because it's not out of the need of having it, to be happy. It just, in that moment, I'm like, just gonna have one, see how it goes. So it's, yeah, because I have a mentor, and for the longest time I'm like, okay, spiritual people don't drink, so I need to stop drinking. Well, first of all, I already made the decision that I wanted to stop drinking, or stop drinking as much, because it was a need to have a good time, and I didn't want to have that need in that way. So I had a this mentor who I saw as spiritual, who she does amazing work. She's helped thousands and thousands of people. And I just, what we do, we put these people up on pedestals and we're just like, you're so amazing. Kind of like what we do with actors. I think we had that conversation on Saturday. Like we were just like, they're great. Well, you know what? Everybody's human. They're people too. And I think I went to her retreat, and we're there, and I saw her drink a glass of wine. I was like, oh my God, she's drinking. And I kind of felt offended by the whole experience. I'm like, I can't believe it. I just thought, because I thought spiritual people, quote unquote, don't drink. And so, but you know what? She's human. She's got her own thing. She can do her in the way she can do her in her best way in that moment. And if that's what she wants to do, that's her choice, right? So it's really interesting how we see other people.
it is. But again, going to a judgment, and then you were talking about, you feel like you're going to do something wrong. I have lived my whole life feeling like I'm always going to do something wrong. And I didn't realize. Well, yeah, perfectionist, because that way, if you're a perfectionist, then nobody's questioning what you're doing, right? So
They
you're
point out your flaws.
doing whatever it is perfectly for somebody else, but on the other side of that, it's just like you just feel like you can't do anything right, and it kind of keeps you in for moving forward. You just can't move forward from that space. And I'm noticing that more. And that was from that conversation I listened to about that relationship stuff too. How she was talking, how the girl was talking about, and it's like so vulnerable, but it's not just being vulnerable. It's sometimes I don't have words to put to the feelings that I feel. And then I hear someone else, talking about it. And it's like, it just gives, I see how they've handled it and it gives me permission, right? It's like they talked about giving yourself permission to do these things. And we've talked about this too, when someone else does something and you're like, oh, it's like they just gave you permission to be themselves, to be their 100% authentic selves, like not caring what size you are and dancing out in public for everyone to see and just feeling it and singing and not caring how your voice feels. But if someone's paying attention to your energy is just like flowing with this energy. It doesn't matter how your voice sounds. The energy coming from the person is in a happy, blissful state. So it's like we miss out on all these things by trying to control it because we're trying to not to do something wrong. And that's how like I said, that's how I've lived my life. And I don't know where that takes me to. I really don't. While we've been talking, one of the things that popped in my head is I have plenty of time and money to follow my spiritual path. And I do. So like, it's just being in that space because this is what my passion is. Before my passion is, which is so funny because things change, right? Before my passion might have been to find the right job or to be the best, I don't know, to learn how to be a psychic medium or to learn or to, flex those intuitive muscles and those, your hearing and your sensitivities and all that stuff. And then on the other side, it's like, I don't really care. I mean, I care about the people, I care about spirit, and I will honor that if that's my path, but I don't care. That today, this moment, I don't care what I end up doing as long as I find myself in a space of happiness and everybody around me is happy too. Because if I'm in a space of happiness, people around you are going to be happy anyways. And when they come around you and they're not happy, they get to be happy in a few minutes. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, right? Well, step into the 5D from the 3D, whatever, however you want to label it, because that's just another label. But how do you feel? That's where the key is. Like, well, that's what you want to pay attention to. How are you feeling right now? And if you're not feeling good about something, like asking yourself, why don't I feel good about this? How come I'm not having fun? Am I being too serious? Because sometimes being too serious is not allowing you to have that fun. You're not giving yourself permission to have that fun. And back in the day, my permission to give myself fun was through alcohol.
Right.
And I, which is crazy. It's crazy, but it's not necessary for me. It's unnecessary. And I think I understand where you're coming from, because when we have role models that we've placed a lot of emphasis on and we have an expectation of them because of the conversations they have and everything, and then they say one thing and it kind of triggers you. But it's also recognizing we're going to have role models, and then we're going to do something that might trigger them. And that's all it is. It's just a trigger for that individual. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, that I'm doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean any of that. If we're doing something wrong, you're not being yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to be yourself, do an awesome job at not being yourself until you learn how to be yourself. Because it's not something overnight. I got to 53 and we were talking recently, and we've been going through these changes for so long. And I think even earlier on this conversation, we've kind of woke up a long time ago, but it feels brand new to me all the time because it's constantly evolving. It doesn't feel the same ever. And it's crazy to me that once spirituality was like, it was always about spirituality for me. A lot of that stuff, not always, but a lot of the stuff has been. And to me, it's like being over-focused on religion, over-focused on politics, over-focused on whatever. It's the same thing. You're so focused on one thing, learning this one thing, but you already have all that what's inside of you if you would just stop and listen. And I don't know what is so freaking hard about just stopping and listening when it's so. We'll go searching for things. We'll go doing and doing and doing as much as we possibly can. And the information doesn't come that way until you sit down for a second and then the information starts flowing in. Why? Well, I mean, we could go back to the other part of the conversation and stepping into the masculine and recognizing the feminine type.
Well, it's confidence.
Together.
Yeah, it's confidence too. If you don't have confidence, then listening to yourself is, because if we're telling ourselves a story of I'm always wrong, I'm never going to get it right, and never have the right answer, I always get, bad grades or whatever that story is, that the lack of self-confidence and trusting your own, trusting yourself, because we've also been taught to trust everybody else. Everybody else is smarter. Everybody else has more knowledge. the grown-ups, right? Because little people depend on grown-ups, and we see grown-ups as they know it all. Even
Yeah,
my
they know
son does.
that.
My son said this to me like a year ago. He goes, when I was younger, I always thought adults knew everything and they just had it all together. And I cracked up. I'm like, no. Like, we're trying to figure it out too. It's like nobody has the answers. We only have our body as the indicator of what feels good to us in that moment. And really what feels good to me in this moment, probably not going to be the same thing that feels good to me in a year. It's going to be something else, something greater, something, I'm not, I'm going to say better, but it's just something different is going to feel good to me. So, so when he said that to me, I'm like, no, son, no, we're all still trying to figure it out. None of us have the answers. But
And then
that's
if
the
we,
playground. That's the fun
yeah,
of
it
being in
is.
the physical.
And I was going to say, even thinking when you do it, when someone does have it all figured out, that's just a perspective. And and when you have it all figured out, that's only for a second. And then that second's gone. Now you're into the
Because then
next
the
second. It's like,
universe says, oh, there's time for them to get another perspective. Let's add a twist to this plot.
that's right.
And they take their little wand and they stir shit up. Yeah, shake the etch a sketch.
They have to shake the shit out of that Etch a Sketch.
It's just like,
Look at that picture.
yeah, I'm just cruising along minding my own business. And the universe is like, okay, let's go, Amy. I'm like, bitch. So that's spiritual, just being playful. I bring the humor into it like that because I just try to imagine our angels or God or whoever, right? Whoever is in spirit watching over us, just like putting their hand to their forehead, shaking their head, like, oh, Lord, when is she gonna get it? But we get it all the time.
Yeah.
And quote unquote, in quotes, get it. So whatever it is you're supposed to get in that moment, that's it.
Because
What
it's
are you
just
gonna do?
constantly evolving. Yeah. Nothing. If you're doing nothing, you'll probably figure it out faster.
Yeah, right.
You'll get the motivation for the next thing. All the things that we talk about, but I'm practicing now. More practicing, I guess. I was practicing it then. I planted seeds within myself and other people.
Well, every time we plant the seeds for other people, it's a reminder for ourselves. Every conversation, our meetup on Saturday, this conversation, every week that we have a conversation, every class I teach, when I'm speaking, I'm like, yep, I needed to hear that too. Card readings, I tell you what, when I do card readings, I'm like, son of a, that was for me.
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Camera for a second so I can have a conversation with myself.
right. Hold, please. I'll be back in 5.
That's funny. That's funny. It's interesting. And it's listening to our passions. Freeman had bought me a guitar a few years ago, and I have not touched. I touched it a couple times lately. Actually, since July 1st, I've automatically gravitated towards it. I don't know why or anything like that. It doesn't matter. So I'm playing with it. I'm practicing on it, doing different things. Not a huge amount of time. And then when the grandkids came up yesterday, we just kind of sat and I listened to. I paid attention to them. I watched their energy. I watched their wheels spinning because you can see it and they're doing things and then they're looking at it up here and, up on the neck of it and they're playing with the strings. And so it's like, I find it interesting. So I'm only saying that for people, like if you got something and you're walking by it and it's grabbing your attention, snags your attention, as Suzanne Geisman always says, go over and check it out. 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes with whatever that passion is. You feel like if you're sitting out somewhere and drawing something, go freaking draw it out. Like I was reading this book and it was talking about going to the beach of time, and he goes into the beach of time and you can create. So if there's something that you want to create, let's say that you like to draw, go into that place and you're in your mind and you're drawing whatever it looks like, whatever you want it to look like. And then you're already practicing in that space, and you bring forward other stuff into the fruition, into this time space reality and our humanness. You get to bring all that forward. So it's like such a fun playtime. So now I can just imagine myself totally ripping it up in there, just really getting down and
Yeah. Get it, girl.
singing and everything. And then who knows what'll come out of it, but it's just, that's the playtime. But that's part of your spirituality. That's part of your growth. It's part of your creativity. And for right now, for whatever reason, for me, creativity is a big, huge deal. Even
Yeah.
sitting yesterday and coloring with the kids and coloring some coloring in coloring books. It's just different things. So it's awesome. If you need to learn how to do that, go hook up with some classroom, step in for an aid for the day or something like that, and go color or something.
Right.
It's fun. But I get to see how the kids are processing things. And then I see how they're not doing it not worried about it so much yet, but I do catch them like, oh, did I do that right? Or I'm like, of course you did it right. Could you do it wrong? I don't think so. Keep up the good work, just move them on their way. Like you said, back to the confidence thing, because a lot of people don't have that confidence, but how do you gain it? Start listening to your intuition. You don't have to mention it to anybody else, and you're going to have some hits and you're going to have some misses. And then it's like, even if you were picking up someone's energy from spirit and you were picking up a feminine energy, it could have still been a man. It could have still been a man because he was just stepping in more into his feminine energy. Maybe he was more in his feminine energy his whole lifetime. So it's like it's just recognizing there's always, things are always working out. They really are. And we get so serious about things and have such an expectation to an outcome or an attachment to an outcome. And then when we say things that we know that are flowing through us, if you try to control the whole thing, it's just, you're going to break up the true and authentic message that's coming out. So it's just to be and not have an attachment to that outcome. And the more that we start doing that stuff, and the person across from you says, I really need to hear that from you right now. Thank you. You don't even realize how much you just helped me right now, just because you were listening to your intuition, just because you said words that popped into your head. That's it. And then you start building up confidence and you start feeling stronger and more empowered in a lot of stuff. You don't feel stressed. We talked before recently about even getting together. You said early in the conversation, us getting together and me even doing this. It was so far from my wheelhouse. And really on so many levels, it probably helped me to evolve on so many levels, even though I was not at a happy time at that space. There was a lot of turmoil going on in my life, and there was a lot of things that I didn't talk about. And there was just a lot of things that were happening then, and trying to process that, and then stepping out into the stuff. And then we were talking over the weekend, and it's like not even I don't even care if I'm speaking in front of people. When I used to be the kid that used to go get into my locker, can I go to the bathroom before I have to do my speech, so I could go in there and chug real quick so I could get some liquid courage to be able to go back and have a conversation. And now I'm having conversations and I'm not getting anything like we had great conversations, but I'm not getting the anxiety, all that. Because really, in a lot of senses, that was kind of excitement, even though it felt anxious and you have to go into it and you're sweating profusely. It's like, I don't really want to do this. And then you do it and it's like, whoo, feels so good. And then afterwards, you don't get those same feelings anymore, which reminds me of Mavis Patel. I think she talked about if she was to do it all over again, she would really have enjoyed that long journey to get to the rest of the stuff, all the psychic stuff with her, the journey knowing. But again, it's a knowing you're going to be okay. Because she was sick and everything. She's a psychic medium. All of a sudden, she wasn't her whole life, and then all of a sudden she was. So she had experiences as a child, but there was a lot of things that she was talking about in that too. And she also would drink and smoke. So she would say something along the lines to not be so perfect, that no one would basically have a way to learn anything from you. So we want to be ourselves, our true authentic selves. If you feel like having a cigarette, smoke. If you want to smoke marijuana, smoke it. If you want to drink, drink. But it's just a matter of where are you at in that space? Are you like trying to distract yourself? Are you avoiding things from that space? If I smoke pot, or if I have a gummy or edible, I'm going into it with an intention. I don't just do it free will, willy-nilly. I go into it like, I want clarity. This is what I'm doing right now. This is where my thoughts are right now. And I'm ready. I've got my pen and my paper. Let's do this. I'm on a mission for information to come through. And that's why information I feel like is coming through, because I set myself up a lot to be in that space. Automatic writing. Automatic writing is just putting a pen to paper, and we've talked about this before, and you've even talked about not lifting that pen up, but it's really just listening to the inner dialogue. And how do you practice? Have a freaking dialogue with yourself. Like, have conversations with yourself. Talk to yourself in your head out loud. I do it both ways. But while we're doing that, I didn't even realize that it was paving a way for anything, but it is, because it's paving a way for my higher self to come through me and give me information that I've been asking for so easily. And then I understand it. What? I gave myself something I could understand? What the hell is this all about? This isn't so serious, but it isn't. Talk to yourself.
That's awesome.
I talk to myself all the time. Honestly, I go over to the cat house, I'm cleaning litter boxes, and I'm talking to myself.
Yep.
The cats have not told me, hey, you need to take it down a notch or anything like that. But I mean, they just kind of go along. They like it when I sing to them too. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. They've kind of been brainwashed. But anyways,
Oh, fun.
it's exciting.
It is exciting. And the creativity allows it allows that connection to spirit to flow even more, because we're right here right now. Because when you're creating something, you're in it. Like that's your focus. And when you're focused on something, you don't have all that head chatter going on or those crazy emotions all stirred up. You're in this thing that is bringing you joy. And then when we're in that elevates our vibrational frequency, and then spirit connects with that. And now it's amazing the information that comes when we're being creative. When I'm in a creative flow with my business, I'm just like, I feel like something is taken over and just doing it, because I'm thinking, wow, this is so easy and it's just flowing so well. And I feel like I've been doing it for hours when it's only been minutes. And it's like, wow, that was so cool because it was so easy.
I love it. I love it. And this is what I want to pursue, though, is pursuing that. That's the feeling. It's not, before I was thinking it was all these things I had to do to channel, to be a psychic medium, to even getting the group to come together, or not even getting the group to come together, just presenting a space for the group to come together, no attachments. I don't have an attachment to this stuff anymore. So it's like it could take off and go do whatever it wants to go do. It's whatever. It's a fun thing, right? I have zero attachment to it, and that's freeing. But I'm paying attention to the thoughts that are going on in my head. Even while we're having the conversation, I'll notice, ooh, why am I holding so tight in my solar plexus? Why do I feel a little bit of tension? And there's nothing that would be nothing in the conversation that would create tension. So then it probably goes back to the same thing, which I don't know for sure yet, but am I going to do something wrong? Am I going to say something like guarded? That's how it feels. Like I've got this from, I would say not from my throat, but from my heart down to my solar plexus, the belly button area, all the way down to that area. It feels like I got a shield up. So as soon as when I'm talking or sitting for a second and you're talking, I'm like, as soon as I felt it, I was like, okay. I just really relaxed my body immediately, and it felt so different almost immediately. And then it allowed more information to come through. So another way that I've been restricting that flow and not even realizing, because we've been doing it for so long. This is what I'm talking about, people, that we can do all this work. Honestly, we think we've come so far, and I don't even think that anymore. I think that what you see is where I'm at right now. This is just where I'm at. But I'm processing these things, and this is how I'm feeling things, and this is what I'm looking at. And honestly, I could just shut down everything right this moment. I really could. And that's not, that feels freeing, because I don't feel like I'm tied to it like I used to be tied to it. So when you have that freedom to do that, you just kind of go into it and you play. It's more playful. I don't have an expectation of myself. I don't have to feel like, oh God, maybe I let those people down. They didn't get anything out of this. Or were people really happy when they left? Oh my gosh, I said I smoked marijuana. Did people judge me for that? Going through that whole like it might have only came up in little tidbits, but it was only little snippets that stayed for a few seconds. And it was like, I could care less, because this is me. I am going to move forward in my life from my true authentic self. And if that's what I feel like doing in the moment, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not hurting anybody. If anything, I'm setting, like I said, I set my intentions always high for good things to come from that. But a lot of times I'll be like, oh, okay, so back in the day, oh gosh, it's only 10 o'clock and we're all out in Cancun, right? I don't think I'm gonna have, it's way too early to have a drink. Well, everyone else is having one, and I feel like I kind of want to have one, but it's 10 or 11. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. This whole story. Jesus Christ, if you want to do something, freaking do it. I mean, honestly, you're not hurting anybody. That's not, I'm not coming from a space of hurting someone, but it's because you think you're so going to do something wrong that you just don't do anything. You stop living, you stop thriving, you stop everything because you're afraid of doing something wrong. You stop everything because they're perfectionists. And how can I do that perfectly? And how can, not even realizing the full aspect of everything when you're in a perfectionist state of mind, but all of that stuff, we're going through such a huge process, and it's not to be judgmental of ourselves in any way. And if we're judging someone else, as soon as you catch yourself judging someone else, it's like, check in with yourself real quick. Why am I judging? What's this about? Feel my body. Oh, I'm feeling inside my body right now. I'm feeling this tension. Why do I have it? Taking a deep breath, because when I take that deep breath, I'm consciously relaxing my body. I'm just letting everything go, letting my gut hang out, my triple muffins hanging over the top of my pants right now. I'm just kidding right now, but I'm just saying, I'm just being dramatic about everything's hanging out right now. And that feels more peaceful, and I don't care. And when I say I don't care, it doesn't mean that I don't care about people. I don't care to show up that way.
Doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't, because as I've been talking, again, it's almost like this conversation's been great because now it's really helped. And the conversation is not even about the conversation. It's just driven me back inside. Because like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I've been focusing more on going inside, and I feel it.
Yep.
And it does it. It's right at my solar plexus. It's like it's kind of trying to squeeze off. And it's like, when we're squeezing off like that, how much are we not allowing to come in or out?
Right.
We're not giving or receiving at that moment. It feels strange. I don't know. I don't know about that, Bev. I feel like she's holding something back from me. Well, because I am holding something back from me, but that's how I would feel. That's how someone else might interpret it. It doesn't mean it's a good thing or a bad thing. It just means that's a feeling thing. That's what you might pick up from somebody else. And they might be feeling they're just kind of holding themselves back because they don't want to do something wrong.
Right.
Misinterpreted. We can misinterpret people so well. That's
Yeah.
why I've always heard, yeah, go by your first impressions, but your first impression doesn't always mean that person's always going to fit that first impression. That first impression is how that person showed up right at that moment, and where you showed up right at that moment, from the skills that you had, from your feelers that you have out there, for your perceptions.
Yeah. I mean, that's similar to, I'm comfortable with teaching in front of people, teaching in front of a group. I'm getting better at speaking in front of a group, bigger groups. But, how many times have people, they're amazing at their skills. They're absolutely fantastic at their skills. But when they go sit in front of an interview and they're a ball of mess, they can't speak clearly. They're just jumbling their words, and everybody said, well, you got to make a first impression, got to make a good first impression. Well, companies started realizing this, and they do 2, 3, 4 interviews of one person if they seem like they could be a good fit. But you got to get past that barrier, right? People got to get comfortable with being able to be sitting in front of others, being questioned, having questions asked, and feeling comfortable answering them. So yeah, first impressions, that's how they're showing up in that moment. When somebody's having a super bad day and they're being super bitchy, maybe somebody's grieving and they're just super quiet and they're short because they're dealing with their own emotions. Well, that first impression, you're going to be like, wow, I don't think I want to hang out with her. She's kind of snippy, right? Well, you don't know what's going on. And that was the way I was when I was earlier in my days. I had so much turmoil within me that I was a bitch. I mean, it's true. And I know that about myself. And so this is where, like, coming back to the beginning of the conversation is, when you do your own inner healing, when you recognize your own traumas and you're working through that with yourself, It's so easy to see it in others. And we just got to know every person is human. Every person has experience. Every person has trauma. Every person is grieving something. Every person is dealing with emotions, right? Every person has something. So take a breath, back off, send waves of grace and love. And you know what? Be sure to include yourself in that process.
You're funny that you said send waves of grace, which I love. My grandson said to me yesterday, they were they were lighting off fireworks and it caused a little bit of a fire. And he says, I sent streams of grace, Grandma.
I love it.
If I've told him that maybe once, maybe twice, like it's so crazy. And I'm like, that's awesome, Colton. Cause I said that has a big, huge effect on things.
Yeah.
I said, it really does. We don't always know how something's going to play out. I said, you can do the same thing. So he presented, it gives me goosebumps. That's what makes me emotional. He presented to me an opportunity for me to be like, those streams of grace. I said, now when dad gets mad or mom gets mad or someone else is upset or anything like that, or they've got something going on, you can send them streams of grace. I said, you may be mad at them right that moment, but you can still send them streams of grace. Cause I said, that takes away all the angst that was going on in the conversation that you were having before. And then I said, then things start changing. And I said, then you start noticing, well, mom's sad. So that's why she's kind of being a little bit short and mean right now with his perspective of mean. Or maybe dad's being mean, but now I can see dad and now I know this doesn't have anything to do with me right now. When dad's getting mad at me, it doesn't have anything to do with me. And I'm okay. So it's like it presented that conversation. It just was an opportunity for that. And that happened yesterday because they say things. And that's what I tell people. You may think the kids are not paying attention to you at all. They'll be sitting around you and I've watched the kids. I've been witness to a lot of things and I've seen conversations, heard conversations. And then kids are playing with their friends next to them and they're nowhere. You don't even think they're even paying attention to anything. And they repeat things back to you word for word. They heard everything.
Yep.
So it's just being aware, but there's all these opportunities. So that's again, so if I was going to stop right now, what would I notice about myself? A couple things. I have some passion towards the kids and I have passion towards the information that information and doesn't mean necessarily I'm not going to go, okay, well, maybe I should go work with kids or I should go do this. No, I'm going to continue being myself and go on this journey and see where it takes me because I'm growing. I don't have to label it anything. I'm just going to flow. And when you have someone that's coming in and just flowing, well, that means that I'm going to be in my confidence because I'm just going to be me. And if you don't like me, that has nothing to do with me. So why should I be anything but confident? Why shouldn't I be anything but my true, authentic and loving self when I walk into a space? Because they're going to love me or not. There's more of an opportunity for people to love your true, authentic self when you show up like that. There's people that you'll meet that's like everybody just loves them and you don't even know why they love them until you get to know them or you hear the conversations and you get the flow or just the energy of everything. Then you recognize why. Because that person is giving you permission to be yourself. That person decided to be themselves. It's awesome.
And just by planting those seeds in your grandson and having those conversations, look how many people that's going to impact as he gets older.
Well, yeah, because there was 4 of us in the room, right? Just 4 of us in this room.
Yeah. So it's going to have that ripple effect, probably greater than you would ever imagine it to be, just by having that one conversation.
Oh, but that's the stuff that right there is what I live for. That's why you just kind of really hit the nail on the head. Really, that's why the group coming together is awesome because it can take off everywhere, but it has such potential for a ripple effect to change the world in such a great, magnificent way.
Yeah.
That we're completely open to possibilities instead of limited. I've seen things on TikTok. We talk about TikTok because it's got some valuable stuff, but they showed a vehicle, I think it was from 1967 or somewhere around then, that had the capability to do a lot of things that our newer vehicles can do now, but it never made it out. Why? Because somebody else wanted to have power and control over that. So they didn't allow that to come out, and because it might have stopped other things from making money. But the thing is, when they stop that, that's the same thing as our body. When our body tightens up, we're stopping that flow. And the thing is, we've had the knowledge flowing to us for so long. What if it was being looked at differently, that information that was flowing in with that vehicle in 1967, look how far advanced we would be. We would be flying around in our vehicles right now. We would be, what the conversation we have here all the time is, it's a vibrational frequency. If you can get to the place where you can tie into a frequency, then you can be right there. It's not a matter of getting into a vehicle and driving anywhere. It's a matter of getting beyond the duality and knowing that we can go to a place just by matching a vibrational frequency. We don't have to get a vehicle. We don't even need, I don't need the truck. I don't need any of the vehicles. It's fun to take drives though, occasionally, really, because you can go see the trees and take the time, you know, walk around once you're at the space you want to be at. You can rent, whatever, but we should be able to, and I think we can. It's just a matter of time. That some people could wrap their minds around it, and other people will be like, yeah, those are the conversations. We have those conversations that opens up the space. When that conversation's open, where nobody's holding anything back and out of fear or lack or losing control. So when we're in that space, we can enhance and grow from that. So everything that's presented to us, someone else can look at and say, I can make it better. I can do something a little bit different. And that's been restricted for a while because they didn't want the power in our hands in a lot of ways. But now we have too much outlets, not too much, so many outlets that we have available to us that we can explore for information on Google, YouTube, TikTok. There's so many people out there right now that if you're looking for somebody, you can find somebody that's speaking your language that you'll understand, that gets you from point A to point B. And then next thing you know, you're at Z. This is the whole journey, all of it. But it's not control, it's not lack, it's not any of those things. It's being your true authentic self. And how can I be that way? It's by recognizing as soon as my body that I'm tightening up in my solar plexus. And as soon as I do that, I open up again, and then more information flows in. So now I'm even seeing with this conversation how I've been restricting myself, even with these wants and desires that I know have been pursuing me, but I just, during this conversation, I've let it all go. It's like, show up if you want to show up. If that's how we decided to show up this time, okay, let's just have fun.
Yeah. So good. Such a great conversation. I love it. I love that we come together each week and have these conversations. And of course, our desire is that it's helping other people. So spread the word. If you know somebody who could benefit from listening to this or to any of our videos, then share us. Let people know we exist.
That's right. Be the ripple.
Be the ripple. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Do you have any final words?
I've had a lot of final words. That was plenty.
She's like, go watch the video. Go
Have
watch
a magnificent week. Yeah,
We've already said so much.
we haven't.
All right, my friends, make it a great week. And if you're celebrating, well, today, I mean, the video is not coming out until Thursday. So I hope you had an amazing celebration if you're watching the replay of celebrating our country. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.